Hi guys, and welcome back to another DrAce video, and today we're going to be playing MotoGP 21. In this video I want to give you some assistance and some pointers on how to improve on throttle control. We're going to be taking a look at the settings I use, and the settings that could help you get better understanding and help you improve with your throttle control. So welcome to the garage. We are taking a look at the riding aids screen. On screen right now you will see all of my riding aids. You will see acceleration input modulation and cornering input modulation. Now the benefit to acceleration input modulation is all about the acceleration itself. So coming out of a corner with it disabled, you might only be able to do 50% acceleration without the rear tyre skidding and sliding. With this acceleration input modulation enabled, you could effectively go 75%, 85% or even 100% coming out of the corner without the rear tyre skidding. Now the second modulation I want to take a look at is cornering input modulation. Now this doesn't actually affect the acceleration per se, however this modulation does indeed affect the bike stability, and why this is important is simply because when the bike is stable, your acceleration will also be similar. And what I mean by this is, if the bike is stuck on an angle and you can't seem to move it and manipulate it, your acceleration will have a very adverse effect to an unstable motorcycle. If the bike is stable and the tyres are parallel, you'll be able to go full acceleration. If the bike is unstable and the wheels won't stay in line, every single time you bring on the acceleration, the tyres will skid and cause a massive problem for acceleration control. So we're back on board with Jack Miller here in the Australian Grand Prix, and I want you to pay attention to the bottom right hand corner of the screen. So you will notice there are three bars that are filling up. The left hand side, the large one, is acceleration, the top right hand corner is the front brake, and the bottom right is the rear brake. And this is very important to pay attention to understand how much throttle is actually required when utilising the settings that I'm using. Now you will notice that the acceleration gauge moves from feathering to a solid one. The feathering is a very gentle input, which I like to sort of tap the acceleration just to try and get out of the corner a little bit more smoothly. Now if you want to, you can hold a very steady throttle, but for me I've always found that gently feathering the right trigger, finding the bite for when the tyres have really gripped and I think there's going to be a nice amount of acceleration, then I will gradually bring on the throttle. Now I also want you to pay attention to is when is the bike actually being fully throttled. So when the full acceleration occurs is only when the tyres are parallel with each other and straight. If I were to fully accelerate into turn 10 for example, or coming out to turn 10 right now, the rear tyre would skid way too much and I would definitely high side before I even got to turn 11. Of course with the MotoGP bikes you do have the aids of traction control settings. Personally for me, I run traction control setting 3. I do find there's a nice balance of understanding the acceleration and a nice balance of assistance to get some fast lap times. So from compared to looking at the MotoGP machines, we now look at the 500cc classic historical bikes. Now of course these guys run no electronics whatsoever, and comparing this to the likes of MotoGP, the bikes aren't as powerful, but of course with no electronics, the acceleration is very sharp. So you have to be extremely gentle and extremely careful when utilising these classic motorcycles. Now personally for me, I would highly advise for you to jump in and try these bikes to get a perfect understanding of how much acceleration is required. You will really understand the difference and the feeling of how much acceleration is needed when using real electronic settings with these bikes right here. You'll feel the bike sliding, you'll feel the wheelies, you'll feel everything you need to really improve your lap times and also your understanding and feeling of the video game itself. Of course, as mentioned earlier, you can take a look in the bottom right hand corner of the screen and you will notice how much acceleration is used for these 500cc machines. You will notice that the acceleration might be even more gentle than the MotoGP machines themselves. It's more or less very similar, but with these bikes it does feel like you have to be that extra bit sensitive just to ensure that you don't accelerate too much and launch yourself off the motorcycle, because let me tell you, it is so easy to slide the motorcycle and kick yourself off the bike if you're not careful with these 500cc machines. So I would advise you to be very vigilant when tackling the 500cc bikes. So I have mentioned in the past, especially in the braking guide tutorial, how important rider positioning is and shifting the rider weight to the appropriate part of the bike. So when you're accelerating and you need to keep the front weight down because of too many wheelie issues, you would push the rider weight forward to ensure that the weight is pushing down on the front so the rear tyre can then grip better and the acceleration will then push you out of the corner. Now when you want to be using sort of a middle amount of acceleration, so you're only going maybe onto the left hand side of the tyre and you're gently just bringing the throttle on, you want to keep that rider weight somewhat in the middle with slowly progressing to the front. Now on the braking, of course this was the total opposite. When you are braking you need to be pushing the rider weight backwards, but then when you bring on the acceleration you need to then shift that rider weight that was leaning backwards to now pushing forward and leaning on the tank and onto the handlebars. This is of course something that you will have to learn and you will eventually get better and better at it. You will understand when corners you'll need to then push forward on the analog stick, and then some of the corners you can sort of stay in the middle. But when actually accelerating itself, so on a long straight, tyres are parallel, you need to keep the analog stick in a neutral position and only move left or right. If you push forward on the analog stick, it will push too much weight on the front and you will then lose speed. And then if you put the weight backwards while accelerating, you will obviously wheelie. So the last category I want to take a look at is the Moto 2 machines. These guys have no traction control settings with the electronic setters reel, and I think it's a great place to learn, as well as the 500cc's I've just mentioned with the historical bikes. It's another great place to learn if you are a complete and total beginner. The feeling of the acceleration really helps you learn and understand how much acceleration is needed for the Moto 2 machines. You could recommend Moto 3, but I do find that is a little bit too easy and sometimes can give you negative habits due to how much acceleration you can use, especially coming from Moto 3 to Moto 2 and to the progressive classes. It's a lot more difficult. So Moto 3 is obviously the basics. It's very easy to utilize the amount of acceleration there because it's not very difficult to actually modulate compared to the likes of Moto 2, the 500cc machines, and of course the MotoGP big boys. So we are coming to the end of this throttle control guide. I do hope it's helped so far, but I do want you to take a final look to the bottom right hand corner of your screen there and have a look at the acceleration gauge for the Moto 2 bikes. I would highly advise you to pay attention to these if you're hoping to understand a little bit more about the motorcycle and understand how much acceleration is required in specific corners. But all I will say, guys, is everything such as the braking, the acceleration and the bike control does take time to get used to. So don't expect immediate results. Keep putting the effort in, keep challenging yourself and keep trying, and you'll eventually get there. But guys, don't fear, if you don't feel that this video covered everything you need to know and you're still struggling, let me know in the comments section down below. I'm more than happy to help you and could even do further guides in the future. But for now guys, that concludes my video. I really hope you've enjoyed it and I really hope it's helped. Like, comment and subscribe if it did to any of those. Hit the notification bell to be alerted to every single DrAce upload, because of course I do upload every single day with lots of MotoGP and Ride 4 content. So upon that note guys, thanks for watching and I will see you in the next video. Ciao for now. Oh hi, didn't quite see you there. Good to see you're still here. If this video didn't quite set your appetite, then why not watch some more DrAce content by clicking the video shown on screen now. Furthermore, if you would like to follow me on social media, you can do so now with the links down in the description. Consider subscribing so you don't miss a single DrAce video.